The great space station orbited a distant planet, spinning slowly against the stars. Inside its gleaming halls, creatures from hundreds of worlds gathered in the council chamber. Some walked on two legs like humans, others floated in tanks of strange gas, and some looked like living crystals that hummed when they talked. Ambassador Vexuthari slithered across the floor, her snake-like body covered in green scales that turned red when she was angry. Today, those scales were very red. She held a small device in her clawed hand and waved it at the other council members. 37 years, she hissed. 37 years we have sent invitations to this world called Earth. Every time they send the same message back. Thank you, but we are not interested. The other aliens made various sounds of agreement. Some clicked their tongues. Others released sweet-smelling gases, and the crystal beings chimed like bells. They were all frustrated with the humans. Council Chairman Mordak stood up from his chair. He was 8 feet tall and made of living crystal that changed colors when he had different thoughts. Right now, he glowed a dull orange, which meant he was thinking hard. Perhaps we should be more understanding, Mordak said in his deep musical voice. Our scientists tell us these humans are still very primitive. They have only just learned to travel faster than light. They probably do not understand how important it is to join the Galactic Council. Vexthari's scales turned an even deeper red. Primitive or not, they show no respect. Every civilized species accepts our invitation within 5 years. These humans act like they are too good for us. Far away from the space station, on a blue and green planet called Earth, Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in a room deep underground. The walls were covered with screens showing pictures of space, alien ships, and the council station. Around him sat his most trusted officers, all watching the screens with serious faces. Kim Dae-ho was 55 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been Earth's top military leader for 10 years, and in that time, he had made many difficult decisions. Today would be another one. "Show me the latest message," he said to Commander Lee So-young, a smart woman in her 30s who ran Earth's intelligence operations. Lee So-young pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed Ambassador Vexuthari speaking in her alien language, but Earth's computers had translated her words into Korean and then into English. "The same thing as always," Lee So-young said. "They want us to come to their council, follow their rules, and accept their guidance. They keep calling us a developing civilization that needs their help." General Park Min-ho, a big man with scarred hands from his days as a soldier, laughed bitterly. "Developing civilization? They think we are children who need their protection." Kim Dae-ho walked to the biggest screen, which showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked all the worlds that belonged to the Galactic Council. There were thousands of them. "Director Choi Hye-jin," he said to a quiet woman sitting at a computer terminal. "What do our spies tell us about how the Council treats new members?" Choi Hye-jin had been watching alien communications for 20 years. She knew more about the Council than anyone else on Earth. She pulled up files on her computer and began to read. "New species are given junior member status for at least 50 years, she said. "During this time, they cannot vote on important matters. They must accept council advisors who tell them how to run their governments. They cannot build military ships without permission. They must trade only with council-approved partners." In other words, Park Min-ho said, they become slaves. Kim Dae-ho nodded slowly. He had read these reports many times, but it still made him angry. Earth had fought too hard for its freedom to give it up now. "What about species that refuse to join?" he asked. Choi Hye-jin's face grew dark. "The Council has ways of dealing with them. Economic pressure first, then isolation from galactic trade. If that doesn't work, they send military fleets to encourage cooperation." The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone knew what that meant. The Council would eventually try to force Earth to join, whether Earth wanted to or not. "Sir," Lee So-young said carefully, "the Council thinks we are primitive because we don't respond to their invitations. They believe we have only a few small spaceships and maybe some basic weapons. They have no idea what we have really been building." Kim Dae-ho smiled for the first time that day. For 40 years, while the Council sent their polite invitations, Earth had been busy. Instead of rushing to join the galactic community, they had watched and learned. They had built shipyards in the darkness between stars. They had developed new weapons and new technologies. Most importantly, they had studied their potential enemies. "How many ships do we have now?" Kim Dae-ho asked. 1,047 combat vessels, Park Min-ho answered proudly. All equipped with the latest stealth technology, quantum, computers and weapons systems that the Council has never seen before. Kim Dae-ho walked back to his chair and sat down. He looked at each of his officers in turn. These were people he trusted with humanity's future. "The Council has been patient with us because they think we are not a threat," he said. "They send us invitations instead of demands because they believe we will eventually see the wisdom of joining their little club. But their patience will not last forever." He stood up again and walked to a window that looked out over the Earth's capital city. Millions of people lived there, going about their daily lives, not knowing that their planet's fate was being decided in this underground room. "We have a choice to make," Kim Dae-ho continued. "We can accept their next invitation and become junior members of their council, following their rules and accepting their control. Or we can decline again and wait for them to decide we need to be forced to join." Commander Lee So-young raised her hand. "Sir, there is a third option." Kim Dae-ho turned to look at her. "Yes?" "We could accept their invitation, but on our terms, not theirs." The room was silent as everyone thought about what that meant. Finally, General Park Min-ho grinned. "You mean show up at their council meeting with 1,000 warships?" Lee So-young nodded. "Exactly. Let them see what this primitive species has been building while they were busy governing the galaxy." Kim Dae-ho considered this idea. It was bold, dangerous, and would change everything. But it might be their only chance to join the galactic community as equals instead of subjects. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said finally, "I think it is time we accepted their invitation, but we will do it the human way." 6 months had passed since the Council's last invitation to Earth. In the Great Council chamber, the aliens were growing more and more frustrated. The floating gas creature called High Arbiter Clicksmoth changed from his normal blue color to an angry orange as he spoke to the assembly. 43 invitations, he said, his voice like wind blowing through caves. 43 times we have offered these humans the honor of joining our civilization, and 43 times they have refused. This is not just rudeness anymore. This is an insult to the entire galaxy. Ambassador Veltana of the Zephyrian Empire stood up from her chair. She was tall and thin with purple skin and 6 arms that moved like dancers when she talked. "The High Arbiter is correct. No species in our 10,000 years of history has ignored us for so long. These humans clearly do not understand their place in the galaxy." Chairman Mordak's crystal body turned from orange to deep red, which meant he was making an important decision. "What do you suggest, Ambassador?" "A show of strength," Veltana replied, her 6 arms moving in patterns that meant determination in her culture. "Send a fleet to their system, not to attack, but to demonstrate the power of the Council. Once they see our ships, they will understand that joining us is not optional." Many of the aliens in the chamber made sounds of agreement. The bird-like Kethari chirped excitedly, the mechanical synthoids beeped in harmony, and the slug-like Malarians released chemicals that smelled like approval. High Arbiter Clicksmoth floated closer to the center of the chamber. "How large a fleet? Do we need to impress these primitives?" Commander Karvesh of the Council Navy stepped forward. He was a soldier from a warrior race, with thick gray skin and tusks that jutted from his lower jaw. "Our intelligence reports say they have perhaps 20 to 30 small ships. A single heavy cruiser should be more than enough to convince them." Chairman Mordak considered this. The Council had rules about using force against developing civilizations, but the humans had been ignoring diplomatic contact for too long. Sometimes a demonstration of power was necessary to maintain galactic order. "Very well," he decided. "Send the cruiser Saran's Light to the human system. Captain Zurgoth is experienced in dealing with primitive species. He will know how to handle this situation properly." Meanwhile on Earth, Director Choi Hye-jin walked quickly through the corridors of the Global Defense Initiative headquarters. She carried a data tablet that contained the most important intelligence report in human history. The information on it would decide whether humanity lived free or became slaves to alien masters. She entered the secure briefing room where Earth's leaders were waiting. President Yoon Jin-woo sat at the head of the table, a serious man in his 60s who had led Earth through many difficult times. Around him sat the military commanders and intelligence chiefs who protected humanity from threats both on Earth and among the stars. "Report," President Yoon Jin-woo said simply. Choi Hye-jin activated the room's holographic display system. Images of alien ships, battle formations, and tactical analyses filled the air above the table. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity in Council space," she began. "They are assembling ships from different fleets and conducting what appears to be pre-deployment exercises." Admiral Kim Dae-ho leaned forward in his chair. "They are preparing to visit us." "Yes, sir. Based on their communication patterns and fleet movements, we estimate they will arrive in our system within 2 weeks." General Park Min-ho studied the tactical display showing the alien ship formations. "How many ships are they bringing?" "Current intelligence suggests a single heavy cruiser with a crew of approximately 800 aliens." Choi Hye-jin paused and looked around the table. "They are treating this as a police action against a primitive world, not as a military operation." President Yoon Jin-woo was quiet for a moment, thinking about the implications. Finally, he spoke. "They still believe we are helpless." "Yes, sir. Their intelligence about our capabilities is 40 years out of date. They think we have crude rockets and primitive weapons. They have no idea what we have actually built during all those years of ignoring their invitations." Commander Nam Ji-wook, captain of humanity's newest and most advanced warship, smiled grimly. "Should we show them?" Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood up and walked to the holographic display. He studied the alien ship designs, their weapon systems, and their defensive capabilities. Human scientists had been analyzing this technology for decades, looking for weaknesses and developing countermeasures. "What is the status of our fleet?" he asked. "All 1,047 ships are operational and ready for deployment," General Park Min-ho reported. "Crews are at full readiness, and all stealth systems are functioning perfectly." President Yoon Jin-woo considered their options. They could try to negotiate with the alien cruiser when it arrived, but the Council had already shown they were not interested in treating Earth as an equal. They could hide their true capabilities and pretend to be primitive, but that would only delay the inevitable confrontation. Or they could reveal the truth about human military power and change the balance of galactic politics forever. "Director Choi," the president said, "what do we know about the captain of this alien ship?" Choi Hye-jin consulted her tablet. "Captain Zurgoth of the Altarian species. 40 years of experience in the Council Navy, with a specialty in first contact protocols with developing civilizations. His record shows successful negotiations with 17 different primitive species." "Negotiations?" Commander Nam Ji-wook asked. "The Council's term for forcing species to submit," Choi Hye-jin explained. "Captain Zurgoth's method is to arrive with overwhelming force, make demands, and accept surrender. It has always worked for him before." Admiral Kim Dae-ho turned away from the holographic display and faced his colleagues. "Gentlemen, ladies, I believe the time for hiding is over. For 40 years we have watched the galaxy from the shadows, learning their secrets and building our strength. Now they are coming to our home with the intention of forcing us to submit to their authority." He paused and looked each person in the room directly in the eyes. "I propose that we give Captain Zurgoth a different kind of first contact experience." President Yoon Jin-woo nodded slowly. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "When their ship arrives in our system, they should find our entire fleet waiting for them, not hiding in stealth mode, not pretending to be primitive, but openly demonstrating that humanity is not the helpless species they believe us to be." The room was quiet as everyone considered the implications of this decision. It would mean the end of Earth's secret observation of galactic civilization. It would reveal humanity's true military capabilities to potential enemies. Most importantly, it would force the Council to treat Earth as an equal power rather than a subject to be controlled. The risks are enormous, President Yoon Jin-woo said finally. If we show our strength too early, the entire galaxy might unite against us. The risks of appearing weak are greater, Admiral Kim Dae-ho replied. The Council respects only power. If we want to join galactic civilization as equals, we must prove we cannot be conquered. General Park Min-ho grinned and slammed his fist on the table. I say we show these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth. Commander Nam Ji-wook nodded in agreement. My crew is ready for action, sir. We have been preparing for this day for 20 years. President Yoon Jin-woo looked around the table one more time. These people had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity's future. If they believed this was the right course of action, he would trust their judgment. Very well, he decided. Operation Manifest Destiny is authorized. When the alien ship arrives, they will find 1,000 human warships waiting to greet them. 2 weeks later, Captain Zergoth's cruiser dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, expecting to find a few primitive spacecraft and maybe some orbital defense platforms. Instead, his tactical officer stared at the sensor displays. With growing horror, Captain, the officer said, his voice shaking, you need to see this. Captain Zergoth stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. Where he had expected to find a few crude human ships, his sensors showed hundreds of sleek advanced vessels moving in perfect formation throughout the solar system. These were not the primitive craft his intelligence reports had described. These were warships that looked more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. How many ships are we detecting? He asked his tactical officer, trying to keep his voice steady. Initial count shows over 300 vessels, Captain. The officer replied, his scales turning pale with fear. But the numbers keep climbing as more ships decloak. Sir, I think they were hiding from our sensors until we arrived. Zergoth felt cold fear crawling up his spine. In 40 years of dealing with primitive species, he had never encountered anything like this. Developing civilizations were supposed to have small fleets of simple ships. They were not supposed to have advanced stealth technology and military formations that would impress even veteran Council admirals. Sir, his communications officer called out, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. On the main view screen, the image of a human male appeared. He wore a dark blue uniform with silver insignia that Zergoth did not recognize. The human's face was calm and professional, but his eyes were cold and hard. Unknown vessel, the human said in perfectly clear galactic standard language, you have entered human space without permission. I am Captain Nam Ji-wook of the Terran Defense Force ship Soul's Vengeance. State your purpose immediately, or prepare to be escorted out of our system. Zergoth tried to recover from his shock and remember his diplomatic training. He was still a representative of the Galactic Council, even if the situation was not what he had expected. This is Captain Zergoth of the Council vessel Siren's Light, he replied. I come bearing an official invitation from the Galactic Council. Your world has been selected for membership in our civilized community. Captain Nam Ji-wook's expression did not change. We know who you are, Captain Zergoth. We have been monitoring Council communications for over 40 years. We are not interested in your invitation. But you do not understand, Zergoth insisted, feeling sweat form on his scaled forehead. This is a formal diplomatic contact. There are established protocols for first contact with developing civilizations. You cannot simply refuse. Your protocols do not apply to us, Nam Ji-wook interrupted coldly. We are not a developing civilization. In need of your guidance. We are a sovereign power defending our territory. You have 60 seconds to reverse course and leave our system, or we will consider you a hostile force and act accordingly. Zergoth looked around his bridge at his frightened crew. They were vastly outnumbered by ships that appeared to be more advanced than their own. His vessel was designed for intimidating primitive worlds, not for fighting a real space battle against a prepared enemy. Captain Nam, he said carefully, surely we can discuss this diplomatically. The Galactic Council has much to offer your species. Technology, trade, protection from hostile forces. We have our own technology, Namji-wook replied. We conduct trade with species who treat us as equals, not subjects. And as for protection, Captain, look around you. We can protect ourselves. The view screen changed to show a tactical display of the human fleet positions. Zergoth realized with growing horror that his ship was completely surrounded. If the humans decided to attack, his vessel would be destroyed in seconds. 30 seconds, Captain, Namji-wook said quietly. Zergoth made the only decision he could. All stop. Reverse course immediately. As the Serene's light limped away from human space, Zergoth tried to understand what had gone wrong. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be grateful for the Council's attention. They were not supposed to have fleets of advanced warships and the confidence to threaten Council vessels. 3 days later, back in the Council chamber, the emergency session was unlike anything in the organization's 10,000-year history. When Zergoth finished his report, the chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens of every species made sounds of shock, anger, and disbelief. Ambassador Vexathari's scales had turned so red, they were almost black. They threatened a council vessel, she hissed. This is an act of war. High Arbiter Clicksmoth's gaseous form swirled violently as he changed from blue to orange to red. Impossible. Our intelligence clearly stated they were primitive. Developing civilizations do not build fleets of that size. Commander Karvesh studied the tactical recordings from Zergoth's ship. These human vessels show design principles I have never seen before. Their formations suggest military doctrine far more advanced than anything we expected. Elder Zix Farah of the ancient Nethran collective floated forward on her anti-gravity platform. She was older than any other being in the council, with memories that stretched back thousands of years. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of ages. What if we have been wrong? She asked quietly. What if these humans developed independently, without our guidance? What if they are not primitive at all? The chamber fell silent. The implications of Elder Zix Farah's words were staggering. The entire council system was built on the assumption that the galaxy's older species were naturally superior to newer ones. The idea that a young species could achieve advanced technology on their own challenged everything they believed about galactic order. Chairman Mordak's crystal body had turned a deep purple color, which meant he was experiencing profound shock. If this is true, he said slowly, then we face a situation unlike anything in our history. It changes nothing, Ambassador Veltana declared, her 6 arms moving in aggressive patterns. They cannot be allowed to disrupt the established order. If they will not join us willingly, they must be forced to comply. We will assemble the largest fleet in Council history and demonstrate why our authority is absolute. Many aliens voiced their agreement, but Elder Zix Farah raised a warning appendage. Before we choose the path of war, we should consider what we learned from Captain Zergoth's encounter. These humans study us. They knew our language, our protocols, our ship designs. They have been watching us for decades. All the more reason to act quickly, High Arbiter Clicksmoth responded. If they have been spying on us, they know our weaknesses. We must strike before they can prepare further defenses. Chairman Mordak stood up from his chair, his crystal form now glowing with resolve. The Council will not be threatened by a single primitive world. We will assemble 800 ships from 20 different fleets. This force will be more than sufficient to bring these humans to their senses. On Earth, the emergency meeting in the GDI headquarters was much calmer than the chaos in the Council chamber. Admiral Kim Dae-ho sat at the head of the conference table, reading intelligence reports with quiet satisfaction. Our deep space sensors confirm it, reported Colonel Bae Soo-jin, the head of military intelligence. They are assembling the largest fleet they have ever deployed. Current count shows 800 vessels from across Council space, all converging on a staging area 2 light-years from our system. General Park Min-ho grinned broadly. They are bringing everything they have. Not everything, Commander Lee, So-young corrected, studying her tactical analysis. This is what they consider sufficient to crush a primitive world that got too confident. They are still thinking of us as upstart children who need to be spanked. President Yoon Jin-woo leaned back in his chair. How long before they arrive? 3 weeks, sir, Bae Soo-jin replied. They are taking time to coordinate such a large force. Multiple species, different command structures, various ship designs. It will take them time to organize an effective battle plan. Admiral Kim Dae-ho nodded approvingly. Good. That gives us time to prepare our welcome party. He turned to Commander Shin Dong-hyuk, his fleet operations officer. Signal all battle groups. Operation Manifest Destiny proceeds to Phase 2. Sir, Shin Dong-hyuk said carefully. Phase 2 calls for deploying our entire fleet, all 1,047 ships. Are you certain we want to show them everything? We have. Kim Dae-ho stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over Earth's capital city. Millions of people were down there, living their lives, trusting their leaders to keep them safe. The decision he was about to make would affect every human being alive, and probably every human who would ever be born. Commander, he said finally, the Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years by convincing everyone that resistance is hopeless. They maintain order through fear of their overwhelming power. But they have never faced an enemy that spent 40 years studying their weaknesses before the first shot was fired. He turned back to face his officers. When their fleet arrives, they will find 1,000 human warships waiting for them. Not hiding, not running, but ready to fight. They need to understand that the age of Council dominance is over. The age of humanity has begun. 3 weeks later, Fleet Admiral Kwarthek led 800 Council ships toward Earth, confident that this overwhelming display of force would end human resistance once and for all. He had no idea that he was sailing into the most important battle in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Kwarthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Inevitable Victory, watching as 800 warships from 20 different species formed up around him. It was the largest military force assembled in 3 centuries, a demonstration of the Galactic Council's absolute power that should terrify any primitive world into immediate surrender. Kwarthek was a veteran of 40 years of space combat, with thick armor-plated skin and cybernetic implants that connected him directly to his ship's tactical systems. He had fought pirates, rebels, and rogue colonies throughout his career, but never had he commanded such overwhelming force against such a small target. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, his fleet coordinator announced. We will arrive at the human system in exactly 17 minutes. Excellent, Kwarthek replied. Signal all vessels. This is to be a demonstration of power, not a massacre. We will give these humans one chance to surrender before we begin destroying their pathetic fleet. His tactical officer, a young Zenthari with green skin and large, black eyes, looked up from her console. Sir, what if the intelligence reports were wrong? What if they have more ships than Captain Zurgoth observed? Kwarthek laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Lieutenant Kess, even if these humans have managed to build twice as many ships as we detected, they would still be outnumbered 4-1, and their technology is decades behind ours. This will be over in minutes. What Fleet Admiral Kwarthek did not know was that humanity had spent 40 years doing something no other species in galactic history had ever done. They had studied their enemies before revealing themselves. Every Council ship design, every tactical formation, every standard operating procedure had been analyzed, tested, and countered. In the hidden shipyards beyond Pluto, Admiral Ryu Jae-sung commanded humanity's response fleet from his flagship, Inchin's Wrath. Unlike the Council's mixed force of different species with different technologies, the human fleet was unified in design and purpose. Every ship was built according to the same tactical doctrine, crewed by officers trained in the same academies, and equipped with weapons designed specifically to exploit Council weaknesses. Admiral, reported Captain Han Jimin from her destroyer, Busan's Fury. Long-range sensors detect the Council fleet approaching. They are dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, just as our projections predicted. Ryu Jae-sung nodded calmly. The Council always used the same approach when dealing with primitive worlds. Arrive with overwhelming numbers, form an impressive battle line, and demand surrender. It had worked for them for thousands of years because their enemies had never Seen them coming. All ships maintain stealth mode, he ordered. Let them think they are facing a primitive defense force. When they realize the truth, it will already be too late. The Council fleet materialized at the edge of Earth's solar system in a display of coordinated precision. 800 warships, from massive dreadnoughts to quick destroyers, arranged themselves in the classical Council battle formation that had dominated space warfare for millennia. Fleet Admiral Quarthek studied his tactical displays with satisfaction. His sensors showed approximately 50 human vessels scattered throughout the system. Exactly what he had expected from a primitive world's desperate last stand. Open a channel to the human leadership, he commanded. It is time to end this foolishness. The main view screen activated, showing the image of a human male in military uniform. Quarthek recognized him from intelligence files. Admiral Kim Dae-ho, commander of Earth's defense forces. I am Fleet Admiral Quarthek of the Galactic Council Navy, he began in his most intimidating voice. You are completely surrounded and vastly outnumbered. I offer you one chance to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, your primitive fleet will be destroyed and your world will be occupied by Council forces. Admiral Kim Dae-ho's expression remained calm and professional. Fleet Admiral, you are trespassing in human territory with a hostile force. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawing from our system before we respond with appropriate military action. Quarthek stared at the view screen in disbelief. Are you insane? You have 50 ships against my 800. Your weapons cannot even penetrate our shields. Admiral, Kim Dae-ho said quietly, you are looking at our orbital defense platforms, not our fleet. Our fleet has been watching you since you entered our space. Before Quarthek could respond, his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kess, screamed in shock. Sir, massive energy signatures throughout the system. Multiple contacts decloaking. The space around the Council fleet suddenly filled with sleek, predatory vessels that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Quarthek watched his tactical display in horror as the count climbed. 200 ships, 500, 800, finally stopping at 1,047 human warships. The Council fleet was not surrounding the humans. The humans had surrounded them. Admiral Ryu Jae-sung's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. Fleet Admiral Quarthek, this is Admiral Ryu Jae-sung of the Terran Defense Force. Your fleet is completely surrounded and tactically compromised. Surrender immediately, or we will demonstrate why invading human space is a mistake. Quarthek's mind raced as he tried to understand how this had happened. His intelligence reports had been completely wrong. The humans did not have a few dozen primitive ships. They had over 1,000 advanced warships equipped with stealth technology that could fool Council sensors. This is impossible, he muttered. Our technology is superior. Our shields are stronger. Our weapons have greater range. Admiral, Lieutenant Kess said urgently, I am analyzing the human ship designs. Sir, these vessels appear to be built specifically to counter our standard defensive systems. Their weapons are designed for rapid-fire kinetic bombardment rather than energy-based attacks. Quarthek suddenly understood. The humans had not just built a fleet. They had built a fleet designed to fight the Council. While Council ships relied on energy shields that could deflect laser and plasma weapons, they were much less effective against solid projectiles fired at incredible speeds. All ships prepare for combat, he ordered. We still outnumber them. We can fight our way out of this trap. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The human fleet moved with a precision that seemed impossible for organic crews. Each ship coordinating perfectly with its neighbors in a display of tactical excellence that no Council admiral had ever witnessed. Captain Han Jimin watched her tactical display with professional satisfaction as her destroyer targeted a Council cruiser's shield generators. Their shielding is impressive, she reported to Admiral Ryu Jae-sung, but it is designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic bombardment. Our magnetic accelerator cannons are punching straight through. The Council ships, built for intimidation and policing actions against primitive worlds, found themselves completely outmaneuvered by an enemy that had spent decades studying their weaknesses. Their standard battle formations, perfected over millennia of easy victories, crumbled against human tactics that incorporated lessons learned from thousands of years of warfare among themselves. Fleet Admiral Quarthek watched his mighty fleet being systematically disabled around him. The humans were not destroying Council ships, they were carefully targeting specific systems to disable them while leaving life support intact. They wanted prisoners, not corpses. "Sir," Lieutenant Kess reported with growing panic, "we have lost 40% of our fleet combat effectiveness. The humans are targeting our weapon systems, engines, and communications arrays with surgical precision." "How is this possible?" Quarthek demanded. "They are primitives." On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kim Dae-ho opened a communication channel to the crippled Council dreadnought. "Fleet Admiral Quarthek, your fleet is defeated. Half of your ships are disabled, and the rest will be within 10 minutes. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war." Quarthek stared at his tactical display, watching the symbols representing his proud fleet turn from green to red as ship after ship was knocked out of action. In 40 years of military service, he had never experienced such a complete defeat. "This cannot be happening," he said weakly. "The Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We are the superior civilization." "Admiral," Kim Dae-ho said gently, "your Council has ruled a galaxy of species that developed peacefully, through cooperation and trade. You have never fought a species that spent its entire history learning how to wage war. We studied you for 40 years while you ignored us. We built our entire military specifically to defeat yours. The outcome was never in doubt." Quarthek looked around his bridge at his defeated crew. They had served the Council faithfully, believing in their civilization's natural superiority. Now they were prisoners of a species they had considered primitive. "I surrender," he said finally. The Council fleet surrenders. As the disabled Council ships were taken into custody by human boarding parties, news of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The age of Council dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun. The detention facility aboard the orbital station Sejong Station was unlike anything the Council prisoners had expected. Instead of crude cells or torture chambers, they found clean, comfortable quarters with proper life support for each species. The humans were treating their captives according to their own military codes, not as conquered enemies to be humiliated. Fleet Admiral Quarthek sat in his cell, staring out through the transparent wall at the blue and green planet below. 3 days had passed since his fleet's defeat, and he still could not understand how everything had gone so wrong. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to surrender at the first show of superior force. The cell door slid open, and a human female entered. She was middle-aged with short black hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a simple uniform with no weapons, but Quarthek could sense the authority she carried. "I am Intelligence Director Won Hye-jung," she said in perfect Council standard language. "I am here to conduct your debriefing." Quarthek looked up at her with a mixture of curiosity and despair. "You speak our language very well for a primitive species." Won Hye-jung sat down in the chair across from him, her manner calm and professional. "We have been studying your languages for 53 years, Admiral. We detected your first probe, ships long before you started sending us invitations to join your Council." 53 years? Quarthek asked in disbelief. "You have been watching us for over half a century?" "Longer than that, actually," she replied. "We first detected artificial transmissions from your space when we were still developing our early radio technology. By the time we achieved faster-than-light travel, we had already been listening to your communications for over a century." Quarthek felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "You mean you have been spying on us this entire time?" "We prefer the term intelligence gathering," Won Hye-jung said with a slight smile. "You see, Admiral, when a young species discovers it is not alone in the universe, it has two choices: trust in the good intentions of older, more powerful civilizations, or prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." She activated a holographic display that showed star charts, ship designs, and tactical analyses. "We chose to prepare. While your Council was sending us polite invitations to join your organization, we were studying everything about you. Your technology, your military doctrine, your political structures, your history of dealing with new species. The hologram changed to show records of other species that had joined the Council over the centuries. Quarthik recognized many of them, peaceful civilizations that had gratefully accepted Council protection and guidance. What we learned, Wan Hiejung continued, was that every species in your Council developed faster than light travel through peaceful cooperation with their neighbors. They achieved spaceflight through trade, diplomacy, and scientific exchange. They never had to fight for their survival among the stars. And humans did? Quarthek asked, though he was beginning to understand the answer. Admiral, humans have been fighting each other for our entire recorded history. Wars, conquests, revolutions, civil conflicts. We have never known a generation of true peace. When we reached the stars, we brought that experience with us. The hologram changed again, showing human military history. Ancient battles with swords and shields, naval conflicts with wooden ships, air wars with primitive aircraft, and finally space battles with advanced warships. While your species learned to cooperate, we learned to fight. While you developed peaceful technologies, we weaponized everything we could. When we discovered your galactic civilization, we knew it was only a matter of time before we came into conflict with someone who wanted to control us. Quarthik stared at the human military records with growing horror. These creatures had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare. No wonder his fleet had been defeated so easily. But we offered you membership in our civilization, he protested. Protection, technology, trade opportunities. Wan Hiejung nodded. Yes, you offered us junior membership in an organization that would control our government, limit our military, and treat us as children in need of guidance. We decided that was not acceptable. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, billions of miles away, the emergency sessions had been going on for 3 days without resolution. The news of the fleet's defeat had spread across the galaxy, causing panic, confusion, and political chaos throughout council space. Elder Zix Farah floated at the center of the chamber, her ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. We face a crisis unlike any in our 10,000-year history, she announced. For the first time, a young species has rejected our authority and proven capable of enforcing that rejection with military force. Chairman Mordak's crystal form had been a deep black color since receiving news of the defeat. Our intelligence networks throughout human space have been systematically destroyed. Our monitoring stations have been captured or eliminated. Everything we thought we knew about these humans was wrong. Ambassador Vextheri slithered forward, her scales still red with anger, but now mixed with fear. They have taken 800 of our best ships and crews prisoner. They could demand any terms they want for their return. What terms do they want? Asked High Arbiter Clixmoth, his gaseous form a worried gray color. The chamber fell silent, as everyone waited for the answer. A communication from Earth had arrived that morning, but no one had been willing to read it aloud. Elder Zix Farah activated the chamber's main display system. The message was addressed to the full council from the human leadership. I believe we should hear what they have to say. The image of a human male appeared on the screen. He was middle-aged with dignified features and wore formal civilian clothing rather than military uniform. The chamber's translation systems identified him as President Yoon Jinwoo, the elected leader of Earth's government. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, President Yoon began, his voice calm and respectful. For 40 years you have extended invitations for our world to join your organization. We have declined these invitations not out of disrespect, but because we studied your charter, your laws, and your methods of incorporating new species. We found them inadequate for a free people. The aliens in the chamber made various sounds, of shock and anger, but Elder Zix Farah gestured for silence. We are not a developing civilization in need of your guidance, the president continued. We are humanity, and we have reached the stars through our own efforts, our own sacrifices, and our own determination. Any attempt to impose your authority over human space will be met with the same response your recent fleet experienced. The image changed to show the human fleet orbiting Earth. 1,000 advanced warships that represented a level of military power the Council had never expected. to face from a single world. However, President Yoon said, we are not unreasonable. We propose a new framework for galactic cooperation, a partnership between equals, not a hierarchy of masters and subjects. We invite you to send ambassadors to Earth for negotiations on a new treaty that will benefit all civilized species. The message ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. For 10,000 years, they had been the ones making demands and setting terms. Now they were being invited to negotiate as equals with a species they had tried to conquer. Elder Zixfara spoke first. They are offering us a choice. Accept them as equals or face them as enemies. This is unacceptable, Ambassador Veltana declared, her 6 arms moving in agitated patterns. We cannot allow one primitive world to dictate terms to the entire galaxy. Can we not? Elder Zixfara asked quietly. They have demonstrated the ability to defeat our military forces. They have technology we do not understand. They have been studying us for decades while we ignored them. Perhaps it is time to admit that we have underestimated them. Chairman Mordak's crystal form slowly began to brighten from black to deep blue. What are you suggesting, Elder? I am suggesting that we accept their invitation to negotiate, send our best diplomats to Earth and discover what kind of partnership they have in mind. The alternative is a war against an enemy that knows our weaknesses better than we know theirs. 6 months later, the first Interspecies Cooperation Summit, convened not on the neutral world of Kepler 442b, but on Luna, Earth's moon. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in a magnificent conference facility that had been built specifically for the occasion, orbited by a modest force of 50 human warships as a reminder of the new balance of power. Ambassador Park, Sujin led the human delegation, a skilled diplomat who had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Across the negotiating table sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, Elder Zixfara, Chairman Mordak, and representatives from every major council species. We propose a new galactic organization, Ambassador Park began, activating a holographic display that showed the structure of humanity's vision for interstellar cooperation. One based on mutual respect and shared benefits, rather than hierarchical control. Elder Zixfara studied the proposal with interest. You are essentially dismantling 10,000 years of galactic civilization and replacing it with something entirely new.